It's been 43 years of waiting for a family searching for justice after their father was killed. But could the killer have left behind evidence that detectives could now uncover? Katie Jeffries has more in this week's Unsolved.
It was October 2nd, 1974. Joseph Davis owned a local cab company. He was also a driver. He went out to pick up a fare and then went radio silent. His body was found dumped the next morning. And 43 years later, his case remains unsolved. But detectives say there were clues left behind. The pictures are worn, the colors faded, but the memory of the night Joseph Roy Davis died is forever fresh in the minds of his children. At 20 years old, Davis's son, also named Joseph, was the oldest of 4 children and worked at his father's cab company as a dispatcher. He took the call from what would become his father's killer.
Went on there for 10 seconds, really. Just said they needed a taxi cab at the Pizza Hut. That was it. It didn't sound familiar to me or anything like that.
His father was the closest driver, so he went to the Pizza Hut off of Lim Turner.
He called me and told me that he had picked up the fare and he was heading over to Southside. That was it.
As time went by and he couldn't reach his father, he got concerned and called his mother, who alerted police. About 6 hours later, as the sun rose, it shed light on a horrible truth underneath the Hart Bridge.
Construction workers were arriving at work early that morning. There was a construction site at the time, and there he laid, but his cab was nowhere in sight.
Just tire tracks next to his body. Then, just before noon that day, JSO got a call about a cab sitting empty on Chester Avenue, Diamond Cab, number 5. And even more, they had a witness who had seen a man sitting in that cab.
When he saw this individual in the cab, he was looking down as if he was reading something or looking at something. Didn't think much of it, thought maybe it was just a cab driver waiting for a fare.
A second witness had also seen the man in the cab. He said he was a white male, about 6'1" or 6'2", and walked with a country gait, and had something in his hand walking away from the cab. Both said the man looked to be only in his mid to late 20s.
So there's a strong likelihood that he's still with us today. He's walking around there, So there's obviously a public safety issue here that we have a murderer walking around Jacksonville that's responsible for this back in 1974 has never been identified.
JSO believes the murder was robbery related. Davis's family, though, isn't so sure.
We believe, it was they set up.
So how do detectives go about identifying a killer from a crime more than 40 years ago?
There is one thing that killers were not thinking about in 1974, DNA. And there is strong evidence that Joseph Roy Davis was killed inside of his cab, but his body was found here underneath the Hart Bridge, meaning his killer had to have moved him.
With someone removing him from the cab, obviously they had to put their hands on him. So there's a strong likelihood that there's going to be DNA on his clothing, which we still have.
Clothing that will be retested for DNA. The preserved evidence could be the key to helping solve a crime that took the life of a husband and father of 4, just trying to provide for his family. His children remember him as a family man, Korean War veteran, business owner, and wish he could have been there to see his children grow up and start families of their own.
Because we all kind of look alike, mother, daughter, granddaughter, stuff like that. We all look alike, and, I think he'd get a kick out of that.
Their mother now has dementia, but has said she wants an answer about who took her husband's life before she dies. But after 43 years of waiting, Dawn says they aren't sure they will ever get justice.
Came to the conclusion, me and my brother talk and say, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and if it's not, then, I guess God doesn't want us to know.
So they wait, hoping someone will come forward.
That's the hardest thing in the world, just for somebody to do the right thing, Be a big help to us.
In Jacksonville, Katie Jeffries with photographer Jeff Renfro for First Coast News.
And if you know anything about the murder of Joseph Roy Davis, please call the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers. And for a look at the cold case database, you can visit projectcoldcase.org.